Hi, I'm Teresa Nguyen-Muth. Welcome to our Insurance and Finance program. With me today is Kimberly Nguyen. She is with West Coast Real Estate Management Group, and she specializes in foreclosure and short sale. Thank you for being with us today, Kimberly.
Thank you for having me.
And next to her is Daniel Sullivan. He has gone through the process itself, foreclosure, and then eventually with Kimberly's help was able to go through the short sale process. So he's here to kind of give us an insight into the emotional as well as the process of the short sale and the foreclosure that he has experienced. Thank you for being here.
Glad to be here.
So Kimberly, before we get started, let's get a little bit of a background on you. If you could share with us why you chose to be in real estate, and specifically, why did you decide to specialize in foreclosures and short sales?
Sure, I will. I'm actually native San Diegan. I lived here for 20 years. In 2005, I moved to Sacramento, and that's when I really started my real estate career. I started real estate because I like real estate, but when I got into the market, it wasn't about real estate anymore. It was a lot of foreclosure and short sales, a lot of emotionals in there. I came back here maybe around 8 months ago in August. And the reason why I decided to specialize in short sale and foreclosure is because before I came back here, I actually short sold my house. And even though I'm in the business, I think it's really challenging and it's a lot of stress to put on a homeowner that's going through, on top of the process itself, is the realization that they need to let go of the house. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to make sure that I can help the homeowners to go through the process at ease. Uh-huh. And so that's the reason why I decided to specialize in
And I think when we're talking about the process, I think that is where it's very challenging and very confusing. So can you kind of share with the audience in regard to the timeline of that process? When does it start, and what can you expect during that whole process?
Okay, in a traditional foreclosure timeline, we're looking at about 3 months from the day you stop making payments, and then you get 3 months, then you get a notice of default. Okay, once you get that notice of default, then you get an additional 3 months to cure your back payment. And if you're not able to cure that, then you'd really have 3 weeks, an additional 3 weeks, then you can get a notice of sale. And that's when you really have to move out, okay? However, in the distressed market that we have now, it's quite different because with the government regulations, with everything that they're trying to do to help prolong or help people stay in the house, the process got extended a longer period of time, mm-hmm. Okay? But that is just, and a lot of people live in the house for maybe 6 months, and it can go as long as 2 years, okay? Uh-huh. So I'm not sure how long Daniel started the process and how long it takes him, but just when he decided to do a short sale to when closing, it took 8 months.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. So Daniel, this is where if you could give us a kind of an idea of what actually happened, with your particular situation and the process that you went through, and then finally leading you to meeting Kim and having her help you through the short sale.
Sure. I bought my house in 2001, lived in it with my daughter and my wife. And unfortunately, my wife and I went through a divorce, and I was left essentially with a 5-bedroom house and my teenage daughter. At that point in time, the housing market was changing. This was 2005, 2006, and I wasn't able to make those payments any longer. So I entertained a couple different options, the first of which was to rent my house out, which helped me make the payments and stay current with my lender, but unfortunately, because of the economy's mm-hmm. state, both of my tenants had lost their jobs and had to break their lease, which put me back in charge of making the payments for the home. So what I decided to do at that point was to go back into the house and try to save it. I started working with my lender to try to modify my loan because I knew I wasn't able to make the payments that I had on my adjustable rate. The payments were going up. I was now a single income household and living in a house that was a little bit beyond my means. In working with the lender, there was this optimism that I would be able to modify my loan. I tried that process for months of sending them paperwork and resending them updated bank statements. I remember one day in particular, I just reached a point of frustration because I thought I was in this modification program to eventually lead me to an actual modified payment that I'd have to make. And I remember sending a 95-page fax, 95 pages of all of my financial information, up-to-date hardship letters, all this information. It really became a full-time job just to try to modify my house. Unfortunately, I was unable to do that. I stayed in constant contact with my lender, thinking that, again, this was the process because I had researched it, I had talked to people, had some friends that were going through it at the same time, and really it just kind of prolonged the inevitable, which was that I was going to have to move out of my house.
And how long was that period of time?
That process went on for, I'd have to say it was close to 6 months, 6 or 7 months. And I mean, it followed the traditional dates of, first it was the notice of default, which then led into an actual auction date for my house, which was the scariest point for me, to actually receive a piece of mail that said your house is going up to public auction.
So then at what point was it that you decided, hey, this is something that maybe I should get someone else's help instead of keep doing it myself?
Yeah, I was very proactive. I got involved. Not only the modification process taught me that I've got to do this myself. Mm-hmm. And so I contacted the bank regularly. I kept copious notes, always tried to get in touch with the person that I had talked to the previous time, which I never was able to. I never was able to actually reach the same person twice, regardless of their phone number, their extension, their name, none of that. And everything is done through phone. There was no email, no real timeline that I could trace. Eventually, my time ran out, and they denied my modification and said that they were proceeding with the auction of my home. Mm-hmm. That was a scary day. I remember going through a stack of letters and solicitation that I had received from real estate agents and experts in the modification process. You don't have to sell your house. You don't have to do this. Send me $2,000 and we'll work this out for you. But for some reason, there was one package that I had received from Kim, along with the other hundreds that I had received, but this one from Kim had a rock in it that had written on it. It was literally a rock that you'd find on the ground, and it had 1,000 pounds written on it. And in her letter, kind of explaining what her area of expertise was, she described that you feel like you have 1,000 pounds on your back right now, let me help. Uh-huh. And this was literally days before my house was about to auction. Got in touch with Kim, met up with her that night, started the paperwork going, and then we transitioned, thankfully, from the foreclosure department to the short sale department. Kim had asked me, do I want to keep my house or am I ready to move on? I had explained to her that I was ready to move on, and that she said that the short sale was the best process, the best option for me, and she couldn't promise anything, but she had a good feeling that she could help.
And that's cutting it pretty close, so I can see where it can be very nerve-wracking, thinking that you might lose your house within a few days. You said when the auction was going to happen.
It was days, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Kim, tell me about, because this is where the consumer gets really confused, modification and short sale. Mm-hmm. Can you explain the difference between the two?
Modifications are people who actively wanted to keep the house. And now a lot of us get to the stage, they want to keep the house. Unfortunately, not everybody can. There are options to keep your house. The first option will be go through the HARP. It's the Home Affordable Refinance Program. And however, that program is very limited. There are people that qualify. How many? Very small. Okay. So if you don't qualify for the HARP, then the next option will be HAMP. A HAM is a Home Affordable Modification Program, which is a government program. And that, you know, there are people that go through and get qualified and get modified. However, they start out with a teaser rate of 2%, and then it gradually increases. If you're not able to go through the HAMP, okay, you do have an option to go through a traditional lender's modification, and it is different for each specific lender, okay? And now those are the options to keep the house, okay? And if you exhausted all the options and you wanted to avoid a foreclosure, okay, then you have options to go through the HAFA. The HAFA is a Home Affordable Foreclosure Alternative, which if you qualify, the homeowners get $3,000 relocation. There are banks right now that advertising, giving additional money, such as Bank of America and Chase. They're advertising $35,000 to the homeowners. Have I seen people get that program? One out of so many. So it's there, but it's not, everybody's not going to qualify for it. So if they don't qualify for the HAFA, then they do have the option of a traditional short sale, okay? A traditional short sale, again, is lender specific. It helps you to avoid foreclosure, okay? And so those are the, so those are the options if you want one or the other.
Okay, so understanding, short sale is when you are not going to be able to keep the house, and perhaps the market value of the house is now under what you actually owe, and it's a way of being able to get out of the house. So then my next question would be, if that's the case that you're going to let go of the home anyway, why don't you just let it foreclose? Why deal with the hassle of having to go through the short sale process?
Okay, that's a very good question. To be honest with you, it really depends on the home sellers, okay? You know, foreclosure has a very big impact on you, on the individual themselves. So by doing a short sale, they actually, the first thing is they save themselves from being branded as having a foreclosure, and they can actually recover doing a short sale in 2 years, meaning they can buy again in 2 years, okay? Another thing would be a lot of the loans that the homeowners have, if you foreclose, they have the right to go after the homeowners. By doing a short sale, they actually waive the deficiency, okay? Not only that, also is the credit impact. Okay, if you do a short sale, there is no branding on your credit. So you actually, when you repurchase again, there's a mark. It asks you whether you had a foreclosure before. If you said yes, it affects your credit, your interest rates. So by doing a short sale, you won't have that. And then for people who work for government agencies, they have clearance. So if you do have a foreclosure on your record, you may not hold that job anymore. Or if you go for applying for a new job, they tend to pull up your financial record, okay, and it's all in there. So when you do a short sale, it's actually helping the owners to stay in there for a few months while the negotiation is happening, and help them determine what their next step would be. Okay, and not only that, there is the Debt Forgiveness Relief Act that's ending end of this year. So for people who want to be able to take advantage of that, that is something they should think about, whether they want to do a short sale, and timing may not be on their side anymore. Okay.
Now, Daniel, going through the process, what advice do you have for the consumer in regard to deciding who you should be working with? You mentioned you have a ton of different advertisement people approaching you to work with you on your short sale. So how do you decide on who would be a good person to work with?
Yeah, that's a tough one. You really have to find somebody that has your best interest in mind. I got lucky. I really consider meeting Kim good fortune on my behalf. She had went through a short sale of her own home. She knew what I was going through. Not only did she know, the do's and don'ts of the process, but she also understood the emotional ties that I was going through and the roller coaster ride that I was probably on. I would say be very proactive in trying to determine what your best options are. Again, you have to get to that point, I think, where you swallow a little bit of your pride and you recognize the fact that you're in a situation that isn't going to get any better by ignoring it. So you have to meet it head on. And there are a lot of different people out there that probably are capable of handling a short sale, but none to the extent that I believe I found in Kim. I mean, she knew it from inside and out. She knew what I was going through, and really we, you know, she helped me kind of save the second half of what I'll consider my housing career.
And like you shared, a lot of these situations, it's very personal, very emotional, very intimate. And so we really appreciate you coming on the show. What was the reason that made you agree to come on and share with our consumer about your experience?
Yeah, I'm pretty private by nature. I don't advertise too much about myself, certainly not my financial situation, whether it's in front of my neighbors or my community or what have you. But I slept on it, and when I had heard about this opportunity, I thought, you know, if somebody else out there was going through what I went through, and by watching this, if they learned just a little bit or helped them in some way formulate a game plan, then that would be worth it. Because that's probably the hardest part in the whole process, is just the unknown, and thinking that you're in this alone and you don't have anybody acting on your behalf, and all this information is hitting you from every side. You know, if by watching this program for a couple minutes and learning what the facts are of the situation, that helps somebody move along and hopefully recover, then I consider that worthwhile.
What additional advice do you have, Kimberly, for our consumer who is struggling or going through some financial hardship at this point, and maybe trying to make ends meet and paying on a mortgage that they possibly cannot afford to pay?
I think the hardest part for people, for homeowners to go through this is recognizing the fact that it is beyond themselves, and they need to seek help. They need to seek out options. They need to find answers or find the least impact on them. And I know that a lot of people are not open because they feel like they're the only one that's going through it, but the reality is there are millions of people that's going through it. And because they feel like they're the only one, they don't want to come out and seek help. Okay, so realizing that, you know, your financial situation may not be temporarily, it may be prolonged, long term. So when you come to that point, then you need to come to a point where you need to kind of like, well, do I want to keep my house? Do I want to do short sale? And seek out the options from then on. If they decided to do a short sale, to do a modification, they have to be very proactive, like Daniel did. Okay, I have case where I've listed a house, they want to do a short sale, then they say, I want to do a modification. I said, that's fine. Make sure you follow up every week, make sure you ask the right questions, and guess what? It's still foreclosed. And when it's foreclosed to the point, you have no control of the timing anymore. Okay, but if you seek out all the options and you decide to do a short sale, you actually gain that control back. Although, you know, I never promise I can do anything for anybody, but at least, you know for sure when it's hitting, when things can happen versus the unknown. Mm-hmm. And so if they come to the point where they need to do a modification or short sale, they just have to very proactive and find somebody that they feel comfortable knowing work on the best interest. Because I know there's a lot of people out there get ripped off, they pay in thousands of dollars, and they still foreclose their house. Mm-hmm. And there was like no other, you know.
Yeah. Unfortunately, this is a very short program for a very complicated subject. So if you have any questions, please give Kimberly a call on the number right there on the screen. Thank you for being with us, and thank you, Kimberly, and thank you, Daniel, for sharing your stories with us today.
Thank you.
ơn quý vị đã theo dõi chương trình của VNTV San Diego hôm nay, phát hình trên băng tầng 19 Time Warner Cable vào mỗi chiều thứ Tư và Chủ nhật hàng tuần, và trên hệ thống Little Sài Gòn TV Galaxy Nationwide 19 trên toàn quốc Hoa Kỳ mỗi ngày vào lúc 6 giờ 30 tối. Chúc quý vị một buổi tối an lành và xin hẹn gặp lại vào lần phát hình kỳ tới.